Thank you all. It's great to be with you here in Erie tonight. I've been looking forward to this, so I really appreciate you taking time to come out. I was thinking about earlier today, and I've thought about it quite recently, of the times that I've had the opportunity to be involved in elections, whether it's voting in an election, volunteering in an election, participating in an election. I've become convinced that this election that's coming up is by far the most important election that I've ever been involved in. I think it's probably the most important election that any of you will have been involved in as well. So we've heard many of the things that Senator Bivens talked about as well, of some of the apathy that's out there. The one thing I'm encouraged about is I've never seen people as excited as they are right now of seeing that their voice does matter, that if they don't speak up, if they don't speak out of what's important to them, then people who don't share their value systems are going to be in office making decisions for us and our families going forward. And that's a huge mistake. So it is time for us to step up and to be involved, to make sure that we vote, to make sure that we get all of our friends and our family and people that we know to get out to the polls this November 2nd, because we can have a real impact on who is leading us and who is directing us going into the future. I think some very significant issues that we're dealing with in our race. Again, my name is Randy Hultgren. I'm state senator from the 48th district. I'm running for Congress here in the 14th congressional district. I'm running against Bill Foster, who's the current congressman here. I see a real problem out in Washington, D.C. right now. That problem is that we have a lack of accountability in our government officials, and we have irresponsible spending among our government officials. And we can't get away with that in our homes. We're struggling. We're being forced to tighten our belts, and yet government officials continue to think that they can grow and grow and grow government at our expense. I'm seeing it every day that people who've been following the rules, of working hard, taking care of their families, taking care of their communities, serving in nonprofit organizations, wanting to be involved, wanting to make a difference in their community, paying their taxes, doing all the right things, now are being punished. They're the ones that are paying the price for all the bailouts that we see of people who've been breaking the rules, who've been looking for every opportunity to enrich themselves at our expense. And that's wrong. It's got to change. It's got to turn around. And this is our year. This is our opportunity to change that direction, to turn it back once again. And I see that's what's so important this November 2nd, that it really is. We need to send people out to Washington, D.C. who are listening to us. So oftentimes we see it with people who serve us out in Washington, D.C., that out of obligation they hear us, but they don't really listen to us. They don't listen to what's important to us, and that's got to change. We've got to demand that they listen to us. My commitment to you is that I will continue to listen to you, not only in this campaign, but going forward. And I think it's a very clear difference between the current Congress and myself, of being here, listening to you, being available, saying, I don't have all the answers, but I want to hear from you. I want together to be able to best represent you. I think Congress really is unique, too, that this is our most direct connection to the federal government. Our person who serves us in Congress is our representative. This isn't the Foster seat, and when I win, if I win, we'll say when I win, it's never going to be the Hultgren seat. This is going to be the 14th congressional district seat. It's going to be your seat, and I will always recognize that. Senator Bivens and I feel this every time we walk into the Capitol, of the privilege it is to represent people, to be their voice in government, whether it's in Springfield or out in Washington, D.C. And I've said this before, but it's so true, that it hits me every time I walk in there, that I've got 200,000 bosses that I report to, that you're my boss. If I represent you in the Senate, you're my boss. And I have that same thought as I go out to Washington, D.C., that it'll be a larger number of people, almost 800,000 people that live in the 14th congressional district. But they're my boss. This is their seat. This is a trust that they give to me to be able to hold carefully and to respect. Right now, I don't feel like we're getting a lot of respect from our current congressmen and other leaders out in Washington, D.C. You and I, my wife and I know, have to spend a lot of time budgeting. When times are tough, when incomes aren't as good, we spend a lot of time figuring out how we're going to get to the end of the month with our current budget. To me, the disrespect that we're seeing out of Washington, D.C. is horrible. Not only are they not addressing the concerns that we've got, not listening to us, they are refusing to budget. We heard about in healthcare the thought that they were going to deem healthcare passed. We were able to force a vote on healthcare. Ended up being midnight on a Sunday night. Tim and I know when anything gets voted on midnight on a Sunday night, it's probably bad. You're probably going to regret it in the morning, and certainly we did with healthcare. We see the 13 new taxes that are going to be in that. We see all the new bureaucracy. Again, a real issue that many people are struggling with, healthcare costs, was not addressed. Instead, costs were increased, up to $1 trillion maybe of additional costs increase on all of us and on businesses and on job creators throughout the nation. But they're talking about what they were talking about doing of deeming healthcare. They've just deemed a budget passed. So they're not going to vote on it. They're not going to talk about it. They say all of us have to tighten our belts. But for them, they can just continue on spending and spending and spending without any accountability. I think that's wrong. I think we need to step up and say that's wrong. That's unacceptable.